Welcome to Retiring Well, where it's our job to help you enjoy financial security in any economy. Well, today is part 2 of our 2-part series on the 6 proposals that our government has to change how your retirement plan works. This is really important stuff. I know you're going to enjoy it. Now it's time to meet our co-host and your local retirement planning specialists.
Hi, I'm Rob Russell.
And I'm Curve Miller.
And we're from Russell & Company,
Southwest Ohio's total wealth management firm,
helping you rescue your retirement from bad advice.
Retiring well, providing financial security in any economy. Today is the day you can take control of your financial future and eliminate worry about your money forever. Retiring well, featuring retirement planning specialists Robert Russell and Curvin Miller of Russell & Company in Dayton, Ohio.
The 6 ways, or the 6 proposals, if you will, that our government has to change your retirement plans and the rules under which they operate. That's a topic of conversation. Today is part 2. Last week we covered the first 3, and just to recap them very quickly, auto enrollment for IRAs, a cap on how much you can save in your retirement plans, and limiting distributions to 5 years for non-spousal beneficiaries. That's what we talked about last week. And if you missed that show, make sure you go to our website and check it out. Anyway, this week we want to talk about the other 3 proposals. Now remember, proposal means that the government is saying, we think this would be a good idea. It is not yet law. It is not yet in force. So these are just things that they're talking about, but we want to pay attention to that because when they start talking about changes like this, oftentimes they end up being enacted. So let's see, the first one we want to talk about today, which would be proposal number 4, I guess, would be to have a 28% maximum benefit for retirement account contributions. And what does that one mean? It simply means this. If you are in higher tax brackets, say you're in the 35% bracket or the 39.6% bracket, maybe you're making a lot of money. If you contribute to a retirement plan today, you get a deduction at whatever your tax bracket is. If you're in the 15% bracket, then you get a 15% deduction on your contribution. But if you're in the 39.6% bracket, you get a 39.6% deduction. All they're doing here is they're proposing that we limit those deductions to 28% maximum. So higher income earners, it would harm them, I guess you could say. We'll see. I mean, the higher income earners also tend to be the people who contribute to politicians' efforts. So we'll see how well that one goes over. Here's another one. Now this one I think actually has a bit of some hope of actually being enacted. It is that if you have $75,000 or less in your retirement plan, they're proposing that we waive required distributions. Now, if you're not sure what required distributions are, once you've hit the age of 70 and a half, don't ask me why it's 70 and a half. Why isn't it 70 or 71? It's our government at work, folks. Once you hit 70 and a half, you are forced to take some money out each year, and it's based on a calculation. What they're proposing is that here you are, you're 70 and a half or older, but if you only have $75,000 or less in your IRA or your 401k, they are proposing that we say, you know what, let's not worry about distributions. It's a nominal amount. It's more of a distraction. It just causes complications. Let's simplify it, just say you don't have to do it. That's what they're talking about doing in this proposal. We'll see if if they pass that. Actually, that one might, in my opinion, have some chance of being enacted. All right, last one. Now this is a big one, because this is where people get in trouble all the time. They're proposing that non-spousal beneficiaries can be allowed to do 60-day rollovers. Now, today, if your parent passes away and they leave you an IRA or a 401k, you can't do a rollover. You can't cash it out and then within 60 days put it in your name. You can't do that. If you do that, you're done. You've cashed it out. What they're saying is, maybe we should let people do that because there are so many mistakes being made there. Well, that would be a good one if it passes. We'll see what they do about it. All right, those are the last three. Now it's time to pass the baton to our co-host and your local retirement planning specialist and get their 2 cents.
And now, featuring Southwest Ohio's retirement planning specialists, Rob Russell and Kervin Miller.
You know, Mike, you bring up some excellent points about these government proposals in regards to Americans' IRAs. And what that kind of does for us as planners is it gives us a sneak peek of what's going on behind the curtain in Washington, D.C., and who they may be targeting for a little more revenue increase. So it gives us an idea of some different planning strategies and that kind of thing. Wouldn't you agree, Curve?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, we're $17 trillion in the hole. We have future bills of $67.7 trillion if you count Social Security and Medicare. So these proposals, I love what you said. It gives us a sneak peek of behind the curtain access to what's really going on in Washington. You know, the trend in this country is higher taxes.
You can't argue with that, can you?
No, and so our job as planners, like you just said, is to really stay on top of this. Now, while these these government proposals, we're talking about part 2 of them. Last show we talked about the first 3, and there's really 3 more. And the first one, the sneak peek behind the curtain in Washington, is the 28% maximum benefit for retirement plan deductions.
Well, so what they're doing, like Mike said, is they're limiting how much of a deduction you can get when you contribute to your retirement account, which certainly is a problem. Now, tax code has changed so much that it's almost like they're discriminating through the tax code. Now, if you go to the front of the Supreme Court building, it boldly declares equal justice under law. Yet the income tax holds hundreds, if not more, of discriminatory provisions. For example, homeowners are treated more favorably than renters because they can deduct their mortgage interest and other itemized deductions. Now, consider that a higher income earner can effectively deduct car loan interest by shifting around his or her finances, but a lower income apartment dweller cannot. So there's a lot of discriminatory provisions in the tax code, and what we're talking about is the same thing. Yeah, you're just adding more and more complexity.
Yeah, discrimination against successful people in this case. I mean, the fact that if you were in a higher than a 28% tax bracket, you can't deduct more than 28% if you want to contribute to your retirement plan.
Well, how are they going to keep track of it? The tax code, let me ask you this. So if I gave you a guide that allowed you to pay the least amount of taxes possible, and all you had to do was read this guide, would you do it? Because such a guide exists. Problem is, it's 74,000 pages long, and it's the Internal Revenue Code. So what are they going to do? They're going to add more complexity and a whole lot more sophistication on how they're going to grab money from your pocket. The important thing to do is have a proactive advisor to help you take advantage of the tax laws for the informed.
Absolutely, Rob. And one of the other proposals was really this whole thing where non-spouse beneficiaries can do a rollover. So if mom or dad pass and they do that, if that's one of those gotchas where it can blow the whole thing up, the government gets a big shot in the arm, the whole thing's
under current law.
Under current law.
And that might be a patch.
That could be a patch. And then also too with that no RMDs for accounts under 75,000. That's another potentially a good one. It's not a big revenue generator for under 75,000. So the key here is understand that there is a lot of stuff going on in Washington. The trend is higher taxes. You need to be taking advantage of tax laws for the informed, like Rob said.
Absolutely. What have you done to lower your federal income tax bracket? Or better yet, what have you done to create a tax-free income plan in retirement? If the answer is not a whole lot, give us a call. The number's at the bottom of the screen, and we'd love to sit down and see if there might be a fit.
As always, terrific information from our retirement planning specialist, your co-host, and you have an opportunity. You've been given an opportunity. Pick up the phone, call the number, sit down with a retirement planning specialist, and have them take a look at your circumstances to see if you've got some gaps that need to be filled. All right, don't go away, because coming up is our question of the week.
Traditionally, American retirees could look forward to three strong pillars of retirement income: a well-funded Social Security system, substantial corporate pensions with retiree health benefits, and a strong personal savings rate. Unfortunately, the booming population coming of retirement age has changed all that. Now, the responsibility for providing retirement income has largely shifted away from the government and employers to you. That's why we're offering a powerful, full-color special report, which explains the 10 most pressing variables you must consider when creating a sound retirement income strategy for the years ahead. You can get this informative report for only $4.95. Simply go to www.retiringwell.tv and click on Get Your Reports to order your copy today. But hurry, this is a limited time offer while supplies last. That website address again is www.retiringwell.tv.
Welcome back. It's time for our question of the week.
This week's question is from Stan from Kingsley, Michigan. He writes, "My advisor is telling me that I should never consider using annuities for income. He says he can do the same thing with laddered bonds. Is he right?"
All right, so it's time for our question of the week. This is an excellent question, a question that we get every week at Russell & Company. And one of my favorite things to talk about, actually, is bonds or annuities. And they both have their place depending on what kind of planning you're trying to do. However, when we talk about bonds, we're talking about buying an asset that has gone up for 30 years. There's been an unbelievable bond bubble, bull market in bonds, and now may not be the time you actually want to buy bonds and entrust your entire life savings or your lifestyle in retirement with something that is destined to go down when this bond bubble bursts. Furthermore, you have the issue with interest rates. So what I'm saying there is, to get the kind of income you need in retirement, stable income, your advisor is going to have to buy really long-term bonds, which in this environment is going to be the riskiest bonds you can buy right now.
Yeah, even if there's some sort of a ladder here, I mean, the fact that interest rates have been on a decline since 1981, you know, bond values, like you said, are at all-time highs. Even if it's laddered, it's still not going to provide the income you might be looking for from retirement. The other thing is not guaranteed.
Yes, that's true.
You know, so there's a lot of misinformation on annuities as well. There's good and bad annuities. You know, there's a lot that I see that I think are awful. You know, but there's some that make sense for people in retirement only because it can guarantee an income stream. Now, that guarantee is backed on the company that guarantees it, but still, you know, that's better than not.
It's contractually obligated, right? Which
Absolutely.
You don't have that with bonds. And, you know, I'm not trying to poo-poo on bonds. Bonds have their place.
Right.
But when we talk about building your own personal pension, that's what annuities are designed to do, is to guarantee you lifetime income that you can't outlive. If that's your goal, that's one of the options you can choose.
Absolutely. And, you know, too, with bonds, be very careful with default risk. Obviously, government bonds, we're all American. If you cut me, I bleed red, white, and blue. I'm not going anywhere. But still, they're as good as the financial backing of the U.S. government.
Yeah.
And if you're in municipal bonds, which also get a lot of buzz, you be careful of defaults of municipalities and things like that, too.
And look, if you're looking for tax-free income, there's other strategies than municipal bonds and the kind of risk that they carry today. So thanks again for the question, and we look forward to the question of the week on next episode.
Do you want your question answered on Retiring Well? Send us an email to question@retiringwell.tv.
This week on Chalk Talk, I'm bringing in my favorite tax strategist, Larry Flynn, to talk about phantom income. Check them out.
Hi, Larry Flynn. Listen, Mike asked me to come on the show here and talk to you a little bit about what is phantom income. And I'll refer this a little bit more to what I call phantom income tax, okay, which is basically the tax associated with that phantom income. Let's just take an atypical situation. I've got a couple older than age 65, okay, they're filing a joint return. They're taking IRA income of $30,000, Social Security at $30,000. Of that $30,000 Social Security, $6,800 of it's going to be taxed because of the other income. So their total income is $60,000. By the time they take their standard deduction and personal exemptions, their taxable income is only $15,050. Well, that puts them in the 10% bracket. Their tax ends up being $1,508. Now, let's say this couple has what we would call phantom income. Now, what is phantom income? It is basically income that I am not using today. That's income I'm investing to use for tomorrow. Now, for all practical purposes, when it comes to phantom income, we really want to be paying tax on dollars we're going to use tomorrow, not necessarily today. And let me show you why that might be the case. The same couple, still receiving IRA and Social Security money, the same amount, now decides they're taking their investment and they're investing it in stocks, bonds, and they're receiving dividends and interest of almost $25,000. Now, because of that income, now their income is $85,000, but look how much of their Social Security ends up being taxed now. It went from $6,800 to $25,000. Their taxable income now, after they take their standard deduction and personal exemption, is now $58,700. Okay, now if those dividends, as I mentioned up here, were qualified dividends, their tax is now $4,939. Now, if those dividends are not qualified dividends, the tax could be as high as $7,939. Huge difference over this $1,508. Basically 5-6 times, depending on where they fall in here with the qualified dividends. Now listen, this is huge. Now there's some ways that we might be able to fix this. If this is income we're not using till tomorrow, maybe we could put those into some tax deferred vehicles, delay that income to a future date when we're going to need it, and pay tax on it at that future date when we're going to be using it. Okay? And if you need to know more about this, then obviously you want to be talking to one of your retirement planning specialists just to see if this might be applying to you and how much tax you might be paying unnecessarily.
Hi, Michael Reese here, and you know what I found is in that critical period, the 5 years before retirement, all the way to the 5 years after retirement, in that 10-year period, I find that over and over again, Americans are making mistakes with their financial planning that, quite frankly, are easily avoided. And it really almost breaks my heart, because if you make little mistakes in this period of time, you can have huge consequences. So in order to help you not make those mistakes, I've put together a simple website with some free videos from me to you to help you be smart about your planning. The website is called 3mistakes.com. It's the number 3 spelled out, THREE, 3mistakes.com. Why don't you go there today?
You've worked your entire life to become financially secure so you can enjoy a comfortable retirement. But when you get there, what's next? Wall Street and the financial media flood the airwaves with information about what you should and shouldn't do. But who are they working for? Who can you trust?
For the past 17 years, I've focused on helping people just like you protect and preserve their retirement security. And during that time, I've identified 7 different lies, each with the potential to destroy the security that you've worked so hard to build. I believe that you deserve to know the truth. And so I've built a website that hosts a series of videos that's free of charge that you can watch in the comfort and safety of your own home.
You don't want to miss out on these powerful videos that shine the light of truth on what can be a confusing topic. Why don't you go there now? It's absolutely free, and you'll be glad you did. www.retirementincomellies.com. You deserve to know the truth.
Welcome back to the show. It's time for our story of the week. And Curve, you were sharing me this story about somebody you met this week named Tom. Why don't you share that with our viewers?
Sure. I sat down with Tom, and one of the biggest concerns he had was how much diversification he had inside of his portfolio. Now, he had done well. He had a lot of saved with a very, very large mutual fund company. And upon looking further into the statements, we found out that he had lots of different mutual funds from this very large company. And what was interesting is that the diversification he thought that he had wasn't really true diversification.
So he had a portfolio of mutual funds, and they were kind of spread all over. I'm assuming he had like bond funds and international stock funds and large cap funds and small cap funds and everything you can imagine.
Yeah, he did. He had all the bond funds.
All the different flavors.
He had all the growth, the large cap growth funds. He had it all.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the interesting thing was, if you look inside, you got to look what's under the covers. That's the only stuff that really matters. And you find out. I think about this as like going to a car lot. And they got red cars and black cars and silver cars and white cars and blue cars. All these different color cars. Some got spoilers. Some got premium wheels. Some have wings. They all have all this stuff. But the thing is, when you pop the hood, they're all running the same engine. That's what it was. I mean, we looked at this, and so there was overlap between funds, and not to mention.
Well, let's pause there. What's overlap? Because that's a little bit of a technical term.
Sure.
I understand what it means, but maybe you could share what overlap looks like and how investors should be aware of that and how it affects them.
Absolutely. So say you have two different bond funds, for instance. Unless you know what's actually making up that portfolio, what that fund is actually investing in, you might actually find similarities between the two funds. They may own the same stuff. And so what appears on your statements to be two different funds actually is holding the same stuff in both.
So you could have a large cap fund that own a couple different large cap funds that look like they're diversified, and they may own concentration. They may own both. They may own GE stock in both the funds, and you may be overexposed into a single type of company or single investment. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with mutual funds are really a basket. It's a basket of investments. So you entrust your money with somebody, and they have a basket of stocks or bonds or maybe a combination of both. And so what Tom was doing is he had many different mutual funds. He was told he was diversified.
Right.
Okay.
And the perception was that he was. He thought that
Sure.
he was too.
Okay. And then what did you uncover during the meeting that you had with Tom?
Well, the most important thing we uncovered was the fact that he had a lot of correlated risk, meaning if the markets are going to go down, chances are all this stuff is correlated. He also didn't understand that, inflows and outflows, so people are taking their money out, can cause the fund to potentially go down in value. Think about this. Let's say we all mutually own a fund, and Rob and I say we're out. Well, you have to sell your stuff, the stuff that's inside of our fund together, to pay us out.
So the fund manager has to sell some things in order to raise cash to pay us. So
Right.
That's an issue. You're right.
Exactly. So that creates some level of risk. And I think that was the biggest thing. It was the lack of diversification, the fact that he did not have non-correlated, he was perfectly correlated with the markets. So when the market gets volatile, listen, the markets go up and the markets go down. We know that for the fact. So when they go up and down, he's along for the ride.
One last thing in terms of diversification. People own bond funds or are told to buy bond funds. They don't realize. They think they're diversifying into bonds. However, those bond funds are traded on the stock market. So again, you have that correlation, that link to what's going on in the volatile markets. Well, thanks, Curve. It's a great story.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, call the number at the bottom of the screen. Be happy to help you too.
There you have it. Another story of why visiting with a retirement planning specialist can make such a positive difference in your life. I don't know what you're waiting for. Call the number on the screen. Make sure you sit down with these guys, and it will make a positive difference, hopefully, in your life. Okay, it's time now to turn the page, transition to the end of the show, and I have again one of my famous IRA blow-ups. This week's IRA blow-up comes to us from Private Letter Ruling 2013-09020. And a private letter ruling is basically where somebody messed up, so they sent in their individual circumstances to the IRS and they said, please have mercy on us. Please tell us that this is going to be okay. And we're basically throwing ourselves on the mercy of the court, if you will. So here's what we've got. We have a gal who was doing something called a 72T distribution, so Internal Revenue Code 72T. And what that is, it's when you are under the age of 59 and a half, but you want to take income from your IRA. The IRS has this, a little known rule called Internal Revenue Code 72-T that allows you to take periodic and systematic distributions from your IRA and not pay the 10% penalty. Now, if you run afoul of their rules, the penalties are nasty, nasty. They're really, really bad. So you want to make sure you're really dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Well, in this case, here's what happens, and this is kind of sad. And I'll just kind of read from this. A woman had set up a 72T distribution payment from her IRA, and she'd been receiving the distributions for several years without a problem. However, the employee at the custodian where the money was, the employee who was assigned for the responsibility of making the annual distributions, retired. And when she retired, nobody took over her job. So here it was, at the end of the year, this poor lady who's been receiving distributions, she said, wait a minute, my money didn't come in. It was supposed to come in December. It didn't come. So she contacts the custodian, the place that has her IRA, says, hey, I didn't get my money in December. What's going on? Well, we find out that the lady that did it retired. Nobody took it over. So the custodian said, holy cow, oops, we messed up. Let's hurry up, and even though it's now January of the next year, 2012 at this point, let's get you that 2011 distribution. We'll double up here in 2012. But this represents breaking the rules on this 72T thing, so there's lots and lots of tax penalties. So we're going to go to the IRS, throw ourselves in the mercy of the court with a private letter ruling and see if we can get them to okay it, give us an okay. Well, good news in this particular case, the IRS said, yeah, it's a custodian's fault, it's not your fault. We'll waive the penalties, we'll give you a free pass. However, in order to get that free pass, they had to pay the IRS $10,000 for that private letter ruling, plus all the legal and professional accounting fees to make it happen. So it wasn't quite a free pass, was it? Ouch! That's our IRA blow up. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the show this week. I thought it was terrific. Take care, everybody.